The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
The Avengers Initiative, Hawkeye.
Welcome to the Avengers Initiative, Hawkeye, a PapiChuloRadio.com original series. Papi Chulo Radio celebrating a decade of podcasting excellence. Today is Tuesday, December 21st, 2021, and I'm your host, Jeffrey Aruz. During this podcast, we'll be having an in-depth discussion on Disney Plus's Hawkeye. Please welcome my co-host, Professor X.
Hi, I made macaroni. You want some?
Yes, because boxed macaroni is delicious. Let's jump into our discussion of Season 1, Episode 5, which was titled Ronin, and debuted December 15th, 2021 via Disney+. Here's the official synopsis of the episode. After a fallout between Clint and Kate, the young archer is ready to abandon her dream of becoming a hero. Meanwhile, a guilt-ridden Clint prepares to go face-to-face with the tracksuit mafia, owning up to past actions. Everything changes, however, when Kate makes a surprising discovery. Dun dun dun. All right, so we start off the episode in the past, in 2018. We seem to always revisit 2018 on these Disney Plus series, but we revisit it for a pretty spectacular reason. We get to see Yelena in the past trying to save a fellow widow. When she realizes the fellow widow is actually not brainwashed, in full control of herself, and is just enjoying a mercenary/killer for hire lifestyle. When she gets blipped, she returns seconds later, but in reality it's 5 years later, and all she wants to do is find her sister. Professor, talk to me about this. What an interesting way to open the episode. This is now just the second episode that we got a flashback at the start. We got it in episode, what was it? Episode 3, right? And now 5. We thought we were going to get one for Jack. We didn't. But we got one for Yelena, which was, I would say, pretty welcome. Right, Professor?
Yeah, I mean, it tied beautifully into the end of Black Widow. Letting us know, sort of tying it into the reveal with Yelena at the end of that. The blip really, as far as, the MCU is concerned, it is the gift that keeps on giving, because everyone seems to get their take on telling it visually, something that, you would think would have been done and done and done and done. But think about how many different ways, from the comic of Spider-Man Far From Home to this, which was probably the creepiest or second creepiest. I remember Monica Rambeau had a very creepy, blipping scene as well. But I thought it brought out the horror, and it really allowed Yelena to play up the fact that, the moment she's out of it, her first thought is, where's Natasha? And of course, we know where Natasha is, but not even the people she's talking to would have known at that point, what had happened to her sister. So it really is good to foreground that relationship with Natasha and explain why it's going to be so important for her in the rest of the episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Poor Yelena, because, yeah. Poor Yelena is all I will say. What a great way to open the episode. I've, as you said, Professor, just the various interpretations for the characters of like what they were doing, what they were in the middle of, what they were returning to after getting blipped. I hate that it's called the blip. I wish that it was called the snap. I know probably no one would know that it was a snap when they were naming it, but it just sounds so weird as the blip. I like the snap, but anyway, maybe the snap would have sounded too silly. Anywho, so this all happens before we even get the Marvel logo, before before we get the Marvel logo and even the previously on. So once we dip into the actual episode, we have an interesting conversation between mother and daughter. And by the end of the episode, we know for certain Eleanor is shifty and shady, but we just had our suspicions. But even with our suspicions, Professor, what did you think of Eleanor and Kate together? Kate returning, a bit disheveled, heartbroken that Hawkeye does not want her to be the hero that she wants to be.
You know, I thought it was a really strong scene. I mean, again, Marvel does a great job of casting. We've raved and raved and raved about Haley Steinfeld, but you know, Vera Farmiga was great as her mother, as Eleanor. And you know, much as I've said since episode 1, since the moment we met her, she's bad. She's bad news. She's going to be the big bad, or at least a big bad. But the scene with Kate was so sweet and touching, and full of such, you know, mother-daughter warmth that I did find myself wondering for just a moment, could I have been wrong about that? Of course, I wasn't, as we find out later in the episode. But no, I thought it was a great scene because, you know, everything we've seen about Eleanor has been portraying her, you know, very much she's trying to protect her daughter. And everything we've seen her do has been about protecting her daughter. Now, there have been the skeevy moments around the sides, which we've talked about. But that scene I thought was very strong, where, you know, she's a mother who's, you know, who's looking at her daughter who's lost a dream on the one hand, but it was a dangerous dream and a bad dream from the mother's point of view. So on the one hand, she's feeling bad for her daughter and wanting to comfort her, but on the other hand, she's relieved that her daughter has made this decision. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, you know, if your daughter were to, you know, break up with a really bad guy that she was dating, on the one hand, it's like, oh, it's so sad that you're sad. On the other hand, yay, party time.
Exactly. Yes. I'm really enjoying Vera Farmiga as Eleanor. She is fascinating, and she's been playing her pretty much consistently, you know, as, you know, the worried mother. And I'm ready for the turn. I'm ready for it. I'm curious to see if we are going to get a full turn, or if she's still going to be playing, you know, I got into this situation because I'm a caring mother. We're going to have to wait and see. There's only one episode left, so stay tuned. The immediate next scene has to do with Kazi and Maya, but we're going to save that for a little bit later because I have a big question about Mr. Kazi for you, Professor. So let's get to what I would say was like the highlight of the episode. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if you felt like this was the scene of the episode, but we have a 9-minute full-on exposition conversation between Kate Bishop and Yelena. Professor, talk to me about it. This was spectacular. A little website that I frequent called tvline.com gave its performer of the week, well, technically it was the performers of the week, to Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh for this scene alone. 9 minutes of mac and cheese goodness. Talk to me about it, Professor.
Oh, this was absolutely the scene of the episode. You know, I mentioned last episode, it didn't have a scene like that, you know, that car chase scene, or it didn't have a scene like the LARPing scene that sort of, you know, was what you look back at the episode and you think, aha, that was it. This scene was that for this episode. It was just a goddamn delight. And a lot of it, yes, it was the writing. And while Florence Pugh is obviously chewing the scenery as much as she's chewing the mac and cheese with sriracha sauce. Kate is playing it absolutely perfectly across from her. Haley Steinfeld made the choice to absolutely play it lower key compared to the expansive confidence of Florence Pugh, which makes perfect sense because, Florence Pugh is playing, the badass assassin who just keeps casually reminding Kate that, if I wanted you to be dead, you'd be dead so many times. You wouldn't even have made it through the door, and it's just, her confidence, and it's not arrogance at all. It is a confidence that we understand and that Kate understands is entirely earned. And Kate in that scene is realizing exactly what she's up against. She's not up against, the tracksuit mafia at this point. She is up against someone who is absolutely stone cold killer, very capable. And Kate is probably realizing for one of the first times in her life, someone much better than her, much more talented, much more deadly. I think, Haley Steinfeld made a great way of playing that as the slightly nervous, never, getting comfortable, even though, Yelena is ostensibly being, very open and friendly. And, I think to a certain extent, there was a real sense of when she said, thanks for this girls' night, it almost felt kind of real. It could be seen as just a mocking sort of thing. But, Yelena doesn't have any close friends that we know of. She's lost her sister. And the only thing wrong with that scene is it was only 9 minutes long. And if we don't get a two-person buddy comedy of Kate and Yelena driving across the country, solving crimes and kicking ass, that is a terrible, terrible missed goal by Marvel.
Oh, I now need that in my life. Yeah, spectacular. So much fun, ridiculous in the best way possible. You only have one fork? That is very strange. That is not cutlery. Like, it was just, it's quotable. It's fantastic. It was nutty. It was beautiful. It was spectacular. And I will co-sign what you said, Professor, because Haley Steinfeld has been fantastic as this sort of like, I don't want to say over the top, but she has been sort of like the comedic foil to Jeremy Renner's. It's strange to use this term in the year 2021, but they haven't come up with a different term. But the straight man. Not talking about sexuality in the world of comedy. Because he has been the straight man, she has been sort of like the ridiculous comedic character. And the role was turned. Oh, how the tables turn, how the turns tables and all that kind of stuff. Because she had to play, the quote-unquote straight character, and Yelena was the comedic character, the over-the-top character, and we had to get Kate's reactions to it. And Haley Steinfeld played it in a way where, she was like nervous, she was a little scared, she was apprehensive, and it was beautiful because we had never really seen that side of Kate before. And I think that's really when she realized how deep she was into this, whatever we're calling it, conspiracy and that sort of thing. I mean, before she was just kind of playing around. She was doing the hero stuff in the way that she thought heroes do stuff. I think this was a little bit of a wake-up call, per se. Yeah, but what a fascinating scene. It was too short, even though it was 9 minutes. Like, it could have been half of the fucking episode, and I would have eaten it up just like Yelena was wolfing that mac and cheese. Spectacular. But outside of just the spectacularness of that scene, the main point of it that we got during the dialogue was the fact that Yelena has been hired to kill Clint. Part of it is personal because she feels that Clint is responsible, based off of what she was told, for her sister's death. And Kate, pretty much is like, no, he's a hero. At the end of the day, he is good. I don't believe, he's done anything bad. But Yelena did give some good counterpoints. Like, how long have you known him? You've only known him for, what, a week? And you think you know him? No, 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 no. I know him. What'd you think of that part of the conversation, Professor? I mean, we think that we're going to end the series with Clint being alive. So, I mean, I feel like Yelena is going to have to somehow um, find some evidence or something. I mean, I don't know how you find evidence for that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you think we're gonna end the series with Clint alive as well. So clearly, Yelena's mind is gonna have to change somehow between this episode and the final seconds of the next episode, unless we get an elaborate post-credit sequence where Yelena finds Clint and ends up murdering him on Christmas.
Well, yeah, and I think in terms of and I think this could be important for Yelena's character going forward, because at the end of Black Widow, we found out that she had been approached by the Valentina, the Countess, to for whatever nefarious thing that she's getting up to. But if, as I sort of expect will happen in the next episode, I think there's going to have to be a scene where Clint confronts Yelena, not wise, but him basically having to relive the trauma of losing Natasha, and Yelena seeing what he went through, and how much it hurt him, and how he didn't want to be the one who came back. And I think that will lead her to basically call off her vendetta against him. So I think that's probably how we'll get that resolution, because you can't have Yelena, who we love and want to have on the side of the angels, such as it is, running around trying to kill our ostensible hero. I did find it curious, when she was talking with Kate, it seemed very clear that she knew that Clint had been the Ronin, and like no one's supposed to know that. How did she know that?
Yeah, I got that as well. I would assume the whole Black Widow spy type of stuff is maybe how she ended up finding it out. But that was interesting. And I wonder if we're going to get some sort of
Although, again,
follow-up.
all of that would have had to have happened while she was blipped. So, I mean, I would assume that, this is just stuff that, Valentina has told her as a form of manipulation. And again, if, Yelena
True.
starts to realize that maybe Val can't be trusted, that might be a good arc for her going forward.
Very true. Do we think we're going to get Val in the next episode?
I'm thinking a post-credit scene.
Oh, okay.
Possibly her and Kingpin would be my bet.
Oh, that's nice.
Like if we don't see Kingpin at all in the episode, or just very briefly in the episode, then I would be willing to bet we'll get a post-credit scene with him and Val. And again, getting back to the idea, if Val is trying to create a Thunderbolts type or Dark Avengers type team, you don't have the Norman Osborn. So the Kingpin could be the sort of shady force behind that, if they're trying to create a sort of Dark Avengers of their own.
Very interesting. I like the sound of that, actually. And she's going to shit talk him. And that's going to show us that she's a badass if she's the one kind of, throwing a lot of shade at the Kingpin, maybe. If she isn't really fazed by him, that might be kind of interesting. Because I feel like we're going to get a lot in the episode of people being sort of scared of him a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. All right. I dig it. I like it. So let's talk about two Clint scenes. We're going to talk about him and Laura in a moment, but the first thing that I want to talk about Clint is, well, actually, we're going to talk about actually a bunch of different Clint scenes. I want to get those sort of out of the way together. The first one in which he reappears is he shows up to Grill's home, and he ends up crashing at Grill's place. We do get some interesting intel from Grills. We know that somehow, shout out to the LARPers, enjoying that LARP life. The costumes are ready for both Kate and Clint. Clearly, there will be payoff from that. We didn't see the bombshell bag being returned, so I hope we get a little
Actually,
payoff.
I was pretty sure we did.
Oh, okay, so
When he
you
was
think?
going into Grills's, I was pretty sure he was carrying the bombshell bag.
Okay, I was
We
hoping.
couldn't see the bombshell logo on it, but it was a black bag of the same style with, white straps, which is what the bombshell bag originally was. So I'm pretty sure it survived.
Oh, okay, good, good, good. I was hoping we were going to see him actually return it, just for the comedic moment. But but yes, so we got to see Grills again, which I will say I was excited about because he was really the first connection that Clint made with the LARPers, and I thought, he would have ended up being kind of like the main person, but we ended up meeting more of the LARPers, which was kind of nice, and he kind of fell into the wayside, and I'm glad that they brought him back. Anything to add, Professor? Or any thoughts on seeing Clint with Pizza Dog showing up at Grills' place?
No, I think it was nice that he went there. I think sort of I believe you and or Priscilla last week were talking about killing Grills, and I don't think that's necessary. I think you're both bloodthirsty monsters. He's a hero. But no, I'm really liking him. He's that connection that Clint has. Not only to Pizza Dog, but Clint doesn't know a lot of people in the city. So the few friends that he has made through the LARPing group, I think are important, and just sort of reminding us of that. And yeah, no, it was great. That cool scene. The fact that Pizza Dog does seem happy there. Although I think if Pizza Dog doesn't end up, with the Barton family for Christmas, along with Kate and maybe Yelena, then obviously once again someone has made a terrible, terrible mistake.
Yes. So the next big Clint scene that I want to discuss is his talk with Natasha, which I will say hit me in the feels in a big way. Props to Jeremy Renner for that moment. Professor, what did you think of that moment he had with Natasha? And can I just say, I personally thought this was going to be the moment that Yelena somehow, was like watching him and heard him say this. I think that would have been a really great moment for her to have, sort of eavesdrop or, spied on. But it didn't happen, so it was a little disappointing in my mind. But what did you think of Clint's moment communing with Natasha's spirit?
I thought it was really good. It's interesting, when you think about how much of a role Black Widow has played in this series, even though technically she's dead and has been for some time in the timeline of the series. But she has been that big motivation. We've talked a lot about Clint coming to terms with the trauma of Ronin and the trauma of everything else, and we're reminded that a big part of that trauma is having lost Natasha, because he was right there when she died. And he felt he should have been the one to die, and that would have saved her. But she made the decision and wouldn't let him. So yeah, I thought it was very strong. You're right. It would have been interesting if there is some way in which Yelena could have heard that, or someone taped it and played it back for him, or something like that. Or like maybe next episode we get a shot where Clint has turned off his hearing aid and is just talking to Natasha, not realizing that Yelena is standing behind him, listening to the whole thing. All you'd need to do is have shot that from a different angle and have a camera reveal, and that could be what we were talking about. The idea that Yelena has to realize somehow that Clint is not the bad guy in this, and for her to find out in that way, I think would be very effective. And also, would be just a little bit, why did he bother turning off his hearing aid before he did it? From a story point of view, then that would guarantee that he wouldn't hear Yelena sneaking up behind him and hearing that. So that could be, if we get a reveal like that, that could be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
It might
yes.
also explain why Yelena chose to look into who had hired her to kill Clint, because she really had no, after the meeting with Kate, she had no reason to do that, to question it or anything like that. So we might get one of those sort of retroactive reveals of a second camera angle that might reveal she was there, and having heard him do that, that's what inspired her to go off and do a little digging as to who hired her.
You know what? I hope we do get that because it would make the most sense. And that was such a Clint moment. I could see them not wanting to include, that maybe Yelena was spying on him, because that would have taken away from the moment, because it was such a powerful moment for Clint, a powerful moment that Jeremy Renner was bringing to life for us in the series. So I can totally see them doing that in the next episode. If we see a full turn from Yelena, I could see them explaining it via flashback. I heard you. I heard what you said. Blah 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 blah. So we'll see if that's what ends up happening. But since we're still on Clint, let's talk about Clint and Laura. Because we had a whole conversation last time about Laura and who she could be, who she could have been in a previous life. And I feel like everything is adding up. Like everything that's being said, I mean, they aren't saying shit, but everything that's being said that we can read into, I think is leading us into the direction that maybe Laura is going to be the MCU's OG Mockingbird, if not at the very least, she was some sort of SHIELD agent, spy type of individual. But I don't feel like they're just going to make her random SHIELD agent spy type of individual, that she will have a code name, and it'll probably be Mockingbird. But Professor, what did you think of their conversation? Like everything about it was just so fascinating. Like, oh, we've been so careful, and this, that, and the other, and yada yada yada. Like, and she clearly knows a whole bunch of details about a lot of the people that we're just meeting, Tracksuit Mafia, the big guy, and everything. So clearly we're going to get some sort of, I don't know if it's going to be a reveal in the next episode, but I feel like we're at least going to get a tiny bit of exposition about who Laura is, right?
Oh, I think so, definitely. We have talked about could she be Mockingbird or just, someone who worked with him, in S.H.I.E.L.D. But I think we've gotten so many hints of the fact that she must have some sort of spy background, some sort of craft background that, frankly, it would be a tremendous disappointment if we didn't get something about that next episode.
100%. Yeah. The way that they've been just teasing it in the background. Like, I feel like we need a payoff for this 100%. Even if it's just a couple lines of dialogue. Maybe it's Clint talking to Kate or something about it, but I have a feeling it could be Clint talking to Kingpin about it, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. It depends on how much of a presence the big guy has in the next episode. Before we get to the big guy, let's talk about Kazi and Maya. So earlier in the episode, Kazi is basically telling Maya, you need to be careful, like this whole thing with the Ronin, it's leading you down this path, and yada, 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 whatever. It looks like he's following up with Maya, based off of the conversation he had with Clint in the previous episode. But by the end of their scene together, he's like, you know what? I will help you get the Ronin, but once we get the Ronin and we finish off the Ronin, you need to be done with all this, which clearly she will be done with all this because she would have gotten her revenge on the Ronin for killing her father and that kind of thing. But later on, we have Clint going as the Ronin to Maya. They get into a fight, but at a certain point, Clint, sort of stops fighting, has a conversation with Maya about that night. And he does own up to the fact that he, as the Ronin, was there, but he says basically he was tipped off by someone on the inside. And Maya is confused. She isn't sure if she really believes him. Kate is there to kind of help him out, and so he's able to escape, and Maya is left to really ponder the situation. And she starts putting two and two together. And she starts questioning Kazi about that night, which seems hella random to Kazi. She was like, why weren't you there that night? You were his lieutenant, second in command. Why weren't you there? I didn't get a notification. I didn't get the text. I was not in the group chat. I didn't know about the meeting. Nothing. I was at the movies watching Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Like he had an excuse, but she wasn't buying it. So we've been talking about this, Professor. We've been talking about how we're going to get Maya on the side of maybe not fully good, but at least on a better side than on the side she's on right now, because she is going to get her own Disney Plus series, and we are assuming she is going to be doing heroic-y type of stuff in her own Disney Plus series. Initially, I was sort of saying, because I was harping on the fact that we need her by the end of the series' run to not be working for a nefarious type of person. So I was like, was it not going to be the Ronin? Was it going to be someone dressed as a Ronin, framing the Ronin, this, that, or the other? This is the best way that they could have done it. Someone on the inside maybe wanting the power. Interestingly enough, he's still sort of second in command. So maybe him, encouraging Maya to get revenge on the Ronin is a way for him to sort of try to get her out of the picture so he can be top dog in the eyes of the big guy. But Professor, let's talk about this. The Kazi reveal, the fight sequence between Maya and Ronin, the conversation Clint has with Maya. What'd you think of all of it?
Well, I like the scenes with Kazi and Maya because once we got the reveal from Clint and we realized what Kazi had done, it suddenly made everything that happened earlier make sense in a different light. For example, as you were saying with him saying, okay, we'll kill the Ronin, but then that has to be it. Because two things. One, Kazi realizes that the Ronin has to die because the Ronin is the one who realizes that he's the one who sold out Maya's father. So he has that incentive that we've never understood before of needing the Ronin to be dead. And we also understand that, assuming Clint was telling the truth, and he almost certainly was, that it's because, Kazi sold him out because Kazi was actually working for the Kingpin, not for her father. So, he's someone with divided loyalties, but his loyalty was always to the Kingpin. And so because of that, I think he would be protected by the Kingpin when the shit hits the fan, unless it is Maya who's going after him. But I think it was made quite clear in their conversation by the end of it that Maya has seen through him and doesn't trust him anymore. Now, where was she going off on her motorcycle there? I don't know. Possibly to see her uncle, maybe, possibly to put a trap in place for Kazi. I don't know, but I did like that reveal, and for her to not just accept what Clint said on face value, but basically to challenge Kazi with it, and really, just the sort of very subtle way in which her body, her body and her posture changed towards Kazi, sold the fact that she didn't trust him anymore. So I think that was very nicely done. I don't think it's enough for Echo to have a full face turn. She's still pretty sketchy and skeezy, but we haven't seen her actually kill anyone, on camera. So there is the possibility of redemption.
Yes, which I think is what we're all hoping for, because we are really enjoying Maya, and clearly she's going to have her own show. And if any of what you said comes true, I would be here for it. That would completely change sort of my interpretation of who's really in charge, because I always thought the Kingpin was in charge of everything Maya was doing anyway. But if they added the extra layer that sort of like Maya and her father were kind of doing their own thing, and Kazi's loyalties were more towards Kingpin versus Maya's father, that's a fascinating angle as well. We're gonna have to wait and see. It sort of ruins any sort of chemistry that I thought Maya and Kazi might have had previously. Yeah, because now he's been clearly working behind the scenes trying to position himself to be in, the best position possible to take over, if anything were to happen to Maya. Yeah, so...
Also with
Mhm.
the Kingpin reveal, because the Tracksuit Mafia was off, trying to get the Rolex, from the beginning of episode 1 of the season, and now that it's clearly established that Kingpin is in charge, that means that Kingpin must be the one who wants that Rolex, and why?
Yes. Yes, yes,
And
yes.
why did why was Echo? Why wouldn't Echo turn it over to him? Why was Echo keeping it at her apartment rather than turning it over to the Kingpin?
That is interesting. I wonder if she just hadn't gotten to it yet.
Because Clint still hasn't gotten it back yet. I mean,
Mhm.
Kate had it at the end of the last episode when they broke up, and they came together, and he hasn't gotten the Rolex back yet. So
Yes. We're gonna have to wait and see in regards to that. Yes. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. There was an interesting comedic scene before, Kate goes to save the day where she was trying to get in touch with Clint. I don't know if we have anything to say about that, but it was adorable as well. But moving
oh
to...
yeah, very much, and very
Mhm.
much in Kate's character. The
Yes.
fact that you can just basically set the camera up and say to Haley, okay. And to what extent were some of those alts or improvised? I don't know, but it was really really good.
Yes, 100%. And so at the end of the episode, the big cliffhanger moment, comes sort of twofold because we get a little bit from Yelena's POV and we get it from the POV of our official heroes of the series, Hawkeye and Hawkeye Jr. Yelena ends up following or tracking down the person that hired her. She snaps some pictures, she sends it over to Kate Bishop, and we officially see that it is Eleanor that hired her, and Eleanor is with the big guy, aka Kingpin. And Hawkeye ends up saying, this is the person that I was worried, would get involved in all of this. So we got the reveal. We didn't, well, I was about to say we didn't see Kingpin. We saw a picture of Kingpin. We didn't really see him in action. Our girl, Eleanor, who we have been suspicious about since day one, we were right to be suspicious of her. I should throw in that Jack ended up getting arrested. Um, he was very calm about the situation. Let's just say that. He was kind of cool with it, even though both Eleanor and Kate were kind of like consoling each other about it. Yeah, so Professor, Jack is in jail. Eleanor is cozying up to the Kingpin, and yeah, just thoughts. I mean, I can't say, I can't ask Art, were you surprised? But what did you think of how we saw the reveal?
Well, I think the way that they chose to do it was a great director's choice or writer's choice, because if you were someone who didn't realize that Eleanor was completely sketchy, like someone who hasn't been listening to this podcast, for the past 5 episodes, then you would have seen Yelena on the street stalking Kate's mother. And you would have been thinking, oh my God, what's she doing? Is she going to kill Eleanor? Is she going to kidnap Eleanor to force Kate to talk to her? What's going to happen? Now, of course, we realized what was going to happen because, we've known that Eleanor was sketchy, and we've, surmised that she was the one who hired Yelena to kill Clint. So it was interesting. And again, getting back to what I was saying earlier, I do wonder whether we're going to get that reveal that Yelena was standing behind Clint when he was talking to Natasha, because I just don't see why she would have, bothered tracking down Eleanor and following her otherwise. There was nothing really in the conversation with Kate that would have led her to that moment, unless, as I say, she heard Clint say something that led her to think that maybe, hey, I'm on the wrong side here. Um, but so I'm really looking forward next episode to finding out the depths of Eleanor's perfidy.
Do you think, where she maybe didn't know how deep she was into it, and she didn't realize, how bad of a person the Kingpin was, because maybe because remember, he's been in the shadows. Maybe she thinks he's just, a businessman that's giving, whatever. I can't think of a way that they're going to write it. This is Marvel. They would write it in a much more spectacular way than I'm trying to explain it myself. But do you think they could give her an out? Because we haven't really necessarily seen her do anything bad. Or do you think we're going to get that full turn in the next episode and we'll see her as the mini boss to the big guy, aka Kingpin's big boss?
I think she's at least a mini boss. You were mentioning, we haven't seen her do anything. Remember that first scene where, Armand was talking about Jack and Eleanor. And, he was, clearly dismissive of both of them. And, I think that was one of those things where, don't trust a person by what they say or what you see them do. Trust, what you hear other people say about them. It's sort of a trick that Shakespeare often uses to tip us off as to what we should think about a new character. So, yeah, I think I think they could absolutely. And what I think will happen is that we'll find out she really is very, very bad indeed. But she might pull the old, I did it for you, kid, because I had to. And Kate is going to be, really shaken by that. And I think, part of, we've talked about, the arcs for our two Hawkeyes. Clint has to come to terms with what he's lost, come to terms with his, the bad things that he's done. And Kate, I've said all along, is going to have to grow up a lot by the end of this series. She only has one episode really left to do it. But I think finding out that your mom is the bad guy and that your mom hired an assassin to kill your hero. I think that will force Kate to basically, turn her back on her mom, and where will she go for Christmas then? Who could have predicted that? But yeah, I do think it's going to force Kate to grow up because, we've seen her. She has sort of been the poor, spoiled little rich girl. She's great. We love her. I'm just saying that, in terms of archetypes, it's like her mom said, she's always been, young and rich. And so she thinks she's indestructible. What we're seeing in this episode, and Haley Steinfeld played a couple of scenes of that where, she's feeling the ache. She's feeling the pain. So she knows she's not as indestructible. I think if next episode they strip away the wealth and privilege from that as well, then they're really putting her in a different location. And then she's going to have to really decide, do I want to pursue this hero thing? I'm not going to be doing it as sort of the billionaire Bruce Wayne doing this idly. How am I going to make a living if I'm doing this? So I think it'll really force her to grow up pretty quickly, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm here for it as well, just because Kate Bishop has been such a fantastic character. I'm looking forward to seeing where she is at the end of this series. And we've only got one episode left. Apparently a 59-minute episode sans end credits, which is exciting to hear. I'm here for it. So we've got the reveal of our big bad, of our mini boss. Everything is sort of really set up for some, I would say, interesting reveals, interesting conversations. I would think, I would hope for a major action set piece. We've got the Bishop holiday party. I feel like everybody has an invite to it, so shit's about to go down. Professor, any predictions? Any predictions at all for the next episode? One episode left. We've got a lot of things to wrap up. There are many, I'm about to say balls in the air, but this is Hawkeye. There are many arrows in the air that need to land. Anything you are hopeful for in the next episode? And dare I say, any dream cameos that you would like to see in the next episode?
You know what? I don't know. I would really like to see Val show up. In a post-credit scene, maybe her with Kingpin, sort of, clearly establishing the connection there, or, giving us a sense as to what's going to be next. Um, a good post-credit scene, I think, should, really prepare you for that. I don't see how they could, go from this to, their upcoming shows like Ms. Marvel or She-Hulk. It doesn't seem to make any sense unless, could Tatiana Maslany show up as a lawyer? How cool would that be? Mind you, I'd also be happy with Charlie Cox showing up as a lawyer. I don't know. I still am convinced that it will end with Clint will make it home for Christmas. Kate will be there with him, and Pizza Dog will be there as well. I've been saying that for several episodes now, and I see no reason to change my opinion on that. Could Yelena be there as well? That would make it that much better.
Oh, that would be kind of strange, but very nice as well. Yeah, because I need the Yelena Kate Bishop friendship to grow. Because if you really think about it, we have Kate. She's basically the new Hawkeye, or she's going to be. And we have Yelena, who is the new Black Widow. Like, we saw a taste of the new Hawkeye Black Widow relationship. And I'm here for it because it's so different than Clint and Natasha. So yeah, I'm excited for it. The next generation of heroes are meeting, and one is terrified of the other one, but it's going to be a beautiful friendship at the end of it all. I really don't know what to expect, so I will be here for all of it. A Val cameo would be pretty damn spectacular. So, Professor, I hope, your spidey senses were tingling and that actually becomes a reality because, that actress is really damn good. And Val is such a fantastic character, so that would be incredibly awesome. And her and Kingpin together with Val giving him shit and not being shooketh by the Kingpin of it all would be amazing. So,
Well, it would also give you a really because Val is still a very mysterious character. We've only seen her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and in the post-credit scene from Black Widow. So for her to show up and be presented as an equal to Kingpin or someone who is not frightened of him at all would really help to establish what level she's working at. Which we've sort of been filling in the pieces and guessing at things up until now. But I think that could. But yeah, if they do bring her in, I think they could really be giving us a little tip as to where they're going. Is this going to be a Dark Avengers or a Thunderbolts kind of thing? There's plenty of characters out there who could come back. I haven't fortunately heard anything about it, so I'll try to remain in the cone of silence until after the final episode drops. But yeah, I'd rather. I'm really curious, but I am really looking forward to it because we sort of had that sense that it was going to be these 3 Disney Plus shows. In this order, once we knew how things were going to come, or should I say 4 Disney Plus shows. But now, we really don't know when we'll be getting the next shows. We don't know how long it will be. We don't know what order we'll be getting them in. And we really don't know what the structure is going to be, of things going forward. So I'm really hoping we get some indication of that in the post-credit scene. I don't want to give up any of the actual runtime of the show, but I think post-credits would be a great way to give us something, whether it's they're tipping off there's going to be Armor Wars or Secret Invasion, or maybe just something that leads us into, a She-Hulk, or, I can't see it being Ms. Marvel. But there are a lot of options out there. World of Wakanda, perhaps?
Secret Wars or Secret Invasion. Armor Wars, Secret Invasion. That might be interesting because we haven't seen our Kree people since WandaVision. So an update from them might be interesting. I don't know how it would fit in.
I was actually thinking another thing we might get, but except they already did it at the end of WandaVision, is we find out one character has been a Skrull all along. But they did that in WandaVision. So I
Yeah.
don't think they'd do that here.
And I don't know who it could be. The only person I could think of is Jack because he's been so, you know what I'm saying?
Oh my
Um,
God, Jack was a Skrull. That would be so great.
yeah. Yes. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. All right. Was there anything that I missed, Professor? A teeny tiny little moment? We didn't really talk about Jack being arrested. He seemed very chill for being arrested. I'm just
Well,
saying.
the thing is, Jack is, he's a privileged middle-aged white guy who's from a wealthy family, well-connected. He's never had to worry about a thing a day in his life. So of course he just thinks that, well, we'll get this all straightened out, or I'll call my lawyers, or I'll, make a political contribution, and all of this will go away. So it kind of makes sense the way he's playing that. And again, I think that just plays up what we've been saying, all along, which is that, Jack isn't innocent. If he was really guilty, he'd be much more, you can't do this to me. I'll call my lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And whereas he's just, no, honey, I would have done the same thing. I'll just go with these nice men and we'll straighten it all out. Don't you worry your pretty little head. And that's what Jack is. He's an amiable buffoon. But in terms of the small moments, when the two guys from the tracksuit mafia are driving along and beatboxing, and they start mentioning, great tracksuits from pop culture. I mean, oh God, that was just insanely stupid and delightful. We don't look like the Royal Tenenbaums. Well, we kind of do.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That was a good moment. Oh gosh, they're so dumb in a spectacular way. Love them. But we are not Maya.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's so stupid.
It's nice to know too with the tracksuit that there are gradations of stupidity.
100%. All right. Anything else, Professor, before we head into MVP?
Nope, that's up for me.
All right. Well, let's do it. Oh,
Oh,
wait.
actually, I do have one little thing.
Okay.
The sriracha scene was an improvisation on the day, because they were looking for something for Kate to throw at Yelena. And Florence Pugh, turns out, loves hot sauce and said, hey, why don't you throw it at me, and then I can use that on the macaroni and cheese later.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. I love that. That's awesome. The one thing that I have noticed, and clearly they're doing it on purpose, but I don't know what the purpose is, but the opening title card of Hawkeye, sometimes, there will be an arrow shot into, the title. Sometimes, there won't be an arrow shot. I noticed that in one of the episodes, I think it was after the Maya backstory, there were no arrow shots. It was like a solemn type of, title card. But in other episodes, sometimes there will be like two arrows shot into it. Sometimes it's just one. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason for it outside of the Maya one, because that made sense. You're not going to hear the when the scene just ended with her father dying. But it's interesting. So it's just something that I noticed with the title card. So now it's time for the MVP, the most valuable player. State which character impressed you throughout the episode and why. Once a character has been chosen, they cannot be selected again, so choose wisely. Professor, you have the privilege of selecting the first MVP, and I feel like I know who it's going to be, because it's an obvious choice.
It is, but I'm leaving you an equally obvious choice of your own. You just get to choose the less fun one. Obviously, I'm choosing Yelena. I loved Yelena in Black Widow. We really didn't get any of her. Just basically a shot of her face and a stare down when we were first introduced to her last episode. But in this episode, wow. I mean, and again, it's a bit like, casting Haley Steinfeld for Kate Bishop, but, when you've got someone as good as Florence Pugh, and, she was just fantastic throughout the episode. She's really great. And one little thing she did that, I don't know if this is an acting or a directing choice, but right at the beginning of the episode where they're taking down the missing widow in order to deprogram her, the widow throws a saucer at Yelena that misses her, and Yelena doesn't flinch, which I thought, again, is an interesting acting choice. It just shows how controlled she is. She knows that's not going to hit me, so I'm not going to waste the effort to even dodge out of the way of it. But yeah, no, Florence Pugh has been, fantastic and delightful, and the more Pugh we get, the better.
Yes, pew pew. I approve. I'm assuming you're mentioning the less fun one as Clint because that is my MVP.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, but Jeremy Renner, even though he was not as fun as Yelena, was absolutely fantastic in this episode. As someone who said the very first episode of this podcast, I'm not a Hawkeye fan. I've never been a Hawkeye fan. He's just sort of been there. And I am now a Hawkeye fan because Jeremy Renner has won me over because he's been given so much interesting stuff to do. And he cemented his MVP status for me with that conversation he had with Natasha. I thought Jeremy Renner was fantastic in that moment. And if I would select another scene that would, just sort of backed up that fantastic scene where he's talking to Natasha, his scene with Maya was incredibly well done as well. A nice fight sequence. It was a tiny fight sequence, but man, was it spectacular and brutal in a wonderful kind of way. And Jeremy Renner was, maybe not the MVP of the episode, because I will say that it was Florence Pugh as Yelena. But as far as the emotions and the gravitas and all that kind of stuff, I thought Jeremy Renner really brought it as Clint in this episode. So now it's time to rate the episode. How would you rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 arrows? The point system is allowed. If you found the episode exceptional, deserving more than a 10, you may grant it the coveted golden quiver. Professor?
I think you could criticize this episode for not that much happening. A lot of talking, a lot of character stuff, but the talking and the character stuff is so good. And I do think that they were putting pieces in place that will pay off in the next episode. I think we're going to get a lot of reveals of stuff that, will make what happened in this episode seem even more significant. I overall, I just really enjoyed it. And, just that scene with Yelena and Kate, how could I give it anything less than 10?
And I will co-sign with you for all the same reasons. It was a talky episode. There really was only one action sequence, a really well done one, but a small one. And clearly this was a setup episode in the best way possible for what's to come in the final episode of the series? ? We never seem to really know with these Disney Plus series, whether it's the series finale or if it's just the season finale. But we are certainly getting a finale. And this was set up for the finale in the best way possible. Everybody was fantastic. I know it was just two of us, so we could only hand out 2 MVPs, but I will say Haley Steinfeld was fantastic in this episode as well. I think everyone did a really great job, and we haven't really said it much, but props. I mean, I know we always comment on the directing and that sort of thing, but I just want to add as an extra props to Bert and Birdie, who have been directing these past 3 episodes. They did a fantastic job. Next week we get the director that directed the first 2 episodes, Rhys Thomas. So it was interesting that in this series there were only really 2 different visions across these 6 episodes, directorial visions, which it's interesting. Yeah, just interesting little fact. On that note, join us next time for our brand new installment of the Avengers Initiative, Hawkeye. Here's our announcer to remind you on how you can interact with us.
Follow Poppy Chula Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Poppy Chula Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@poppychularadio.com. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chula Radio team as an on-air personality? Email talent@poppychularadio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Poppy Chula Radio programs by visiting poppychularadio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Just search for The Avengers Initiative, Hawkeye, and subscribe.
Thanks, announcer. My co-hosts, please wish listeners a good night.
Good night, listeners. It's the last episode coming up just in time for Christmas, so it is the most wonderful time of the year.
That was beautiful. We will earn a podcast Grammy just for that, I feel.
Second time I've sung on this podcast.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in. Download new episodes of the Avengers Initiative Hawkeye every Wednesday via Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and the Poppy Chulo Radio archives. Good night.